Welcome into a late night edition of Blues Hub Postgame, an even later edition than we probably thought it was and wish it was. But the Blues get a 3-2 shootout win, 2 big points, 3 points behind Calgary now in the playoff race. Here, Jacob Stanoch with you, Thomas Welch with us here tonight, and let's just get right into it, Thomas. Talk about what you saw from this game. I know I had a lot of comments, but I could talk for hours about the ups and downs, lefts and rights, the bad, the good, the ugly. Everything about this game was almost the epitome of Blues hockey as watching the past few years. So I got to ask you about it.
Yeah, I'm so fired up right now. It really felt like almost the season kind of hinged on what the result of this game was going to be. So obviously in true Blues fashion, they had to make it nail biting as possible. They had to make it a late start time, and they had to send it to shootout, like just nail biter as much as you read about. But my God, what can you say about this team, dude? Like from Jordan Binnington standing on his head in overtime. I think the stats on TV said he's saved 14 of 16 shots in the shootout this season. Obviously did well in the shootout as well as the Blues came away with the victory. Robert Thomas putting the team on his back, not just in the shootout, but scoring in the game as well, prolonging his point streak. Just further inserting his name in Blues history. Like everything about this team right now, like even if they pushed it to overtime and they lost, I still would have felt like this was a good game. Like it felt like, they were, at sometimes it felt a little bit out of control, but for the most part, they were controlling it. They had more shots than the Kings. I think the recipe to their success for this game was the same recipe for success they had the last time that they played the Kings, and slow, methodical, tactical, but then just laying the body in terms of hits and blocking shots is putting your body on the line. It really felt like not just a playoff game, but it felt like game 7 too. And I was just sitting there shaking, like, please don't let this be the way that, don't let this be Braden Shen's like last game in a Blues uniform because we get blown out. And then they're like, well, let's just blow it up. Like, God, everything just culminated in the perfect fashion. And now we can talk about how the Blues are going to bring in Mikko Rantanen. I'm just kidding, but that'd be crazy.
Yeah, we can hope. Just a reminder, Blues Hub post game brought to you by Hot Shot, St. Louis's home for all the games, all the time since 1990. And also make sure you like and subscribe right here on Sports Hub STL, and make sure to follow us on all the other socials. You can catch us every live show on demand afterwards here on YouTube, and also make sure to catch all of our other content over on STL or SportsHubSTL.com. So we take a look at this game, and I'll just flat out give you what I thought about it. Ugly. I really don't think, outside of Binner, who had a Vezina-like game once again, and it showed even more in the overtime, it was kind of a sloppy game. And I don't think it was something they did to themselves. I think it was more or less a result of the Kings. I think both teams kind of had a mentality of just being angry following these past few games. Obviously, the Blues, after the Stars ended their winning streak in a very rough fashion, and that 6-3 loss the other day. But you take a look at the Kings in their past 3 games, 0-3 in the past 3, in that road trip that they had against the Stars, the Blues, and also the Blackhawks, losing all 3 of those games. They get back home where they are one of the best home teams in the NHL, following those 3 games where they lose to opponents that, one of them's a top-tier opponent, one team in the playoff hunt in the Blues, and then you got the Blackhawks, who are every year for the past couple of years just willing to blow stuff up at this point of the season, because well, I could just talk crap about Chicago all I want. That's just how it's Sports Hub STL for a reason. That's how it is. But to just kind of looking at this game, though, I think the Kings did a good job. And I think it's just a result of playing the same team 3 times in less than 10 days. And this second game really showed that. And that's why I think Friday is going to be even tougher, because I think the Kings now know they took what happened last week, brought it into today's game. And really, I think the Blues kind of had that same mentality, like you said, in this game as they did last week against the Kings. And I think the Kings just expected that and completely flipped it on them. And looking back now at Friday, I think the Blues are just going to switch something up. But of course, they also still have the matchup with Anaheim Friday night. And it's just this road trip. To me, off to a slow start. I don't know what you saw, but first period, thought it went well. Beginning of the power play was good, that first power play, but then they switched off that power play. And their second unit comes in for the end of that first power play, and it was rough to say the least. And that was the trend for the next two power plays following that until Tomer finally put one away. But Neighbours puts that goal away, and then Byfield follows it up with a just incredible shot right at the end of the period. But then after that, that second period was arguably one of the worst second periods I've seen from the Blues so far this season. I have to be honest.
And that was concerning, right? I mean, you get such an electric goal from Jake Neighbours, one of your young guys. Just goes backhand right off the shoulder of Kemper and goes into the net, short side. You can just see the emotion on him. Like he's cheesing all the way around to his celebration and doing the high fives on the bench. And then not even like 15, 20 seconds later, like just in true Blues fashion, like just let one in the back of the net and it's all tied up to go into the second period. It's like, dude, come on. I've seen this a million times from this team. Like I thought we were past this. Like you can never like take a breath or like take a shift off in this league, like until it hits 0-0, like everybody's got a chance to score. And like you said, that's exactly what happened with Byfield, who's just a monster. And that was a rifle of a shot. So you can't even be mad at him. I think Binner was probably screened on that. It looked like Parayko, who's a large man, was standing in front of him. So I don't think he ever saw it, but even if he did see it, that would have been tough to save. But just looking at the stat line here for the total game, the biggest takeaway that I'm looking at in terms of a gap here is the Kings had 25 giveaways and the Blues only had 10. But I feel like those giveaways were due to the pressure from the St. Louis Blues. I mean, it felt like every time a Kings player got the puck, there was like not only one Blues player like immediately on him, stick checking him, but another one coming behind him to like throw a body, bang a body. Like they were just making everything difficult for the Kings. And that's kind of what they did last time. It's just constant pressure on the forecheck, on the back check, in the neutral zone. Now, at times, did it look a little bit dicey? Absolutely. Kings are a good team. Like you said, they are one of, if not the best, like home teams in the entire NHL. I think the record was 19-3-3, which is actually insane. Like that seems like a basketball record. Like that shouldn't happen in the NHL. So the fact that the Blues played them as well as they did in their home barn, where they've only lost a handful amount of times this entire season, I think is just a testament to the ways that the Blues have been playing and continue to roll. Maybe the win streak's not there, but maybe they start another one. And we'll see what happens.
Yet. Let's not get crazy yet.
I'm just saying, we'll see what happens at the trade deadline. But it still feels like this team is telling Doug Armstrong, hey, we want to compete. At least give us a chance. Don't blow it up. Don't send our captain over to Toronto. Don't do that. We've got a squad that can compete with the best teams in the league. Just let us be. Let us do our thing, and we'll see what happens.
Unfortunately, obviously, and the trade deadline is going to be probably the biggest topic for obviously the next few days. We're going to keep our eye on it because at this point, we really have no idea. We've been going back and forth alongside with Mike Meyer as well. Just back and forth of ideas of what we think could happen, who we want to see, what we don't want to see, what we think Doug will do, so on and so forth. And so many of these scenarios. And really, whenever we have these conversations, it really boils down to just, we don't really know if they're really know, and honestly, really don't think Doug will do anything because we don't really think that there's much that will fill in. Because right now, according to a lot of people, Schen's the only piece that can be moved. And I don't think there's anything that has really upped his stock for people to want him that bad. I don't think there's anything that really lowered him down for the Blues to be like, okay, we can fill this spot, get something better in return. I think it's just kind of really everything's up in the air right now. It's just, that's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I think that kind of changed things was I heard on 32 Thoughts that the Devils were interested in Braden Shen even before Jack Hughes got hurt. So the fact that he's out for the season now and won't be playing in the playoffs could potentially raise Braden Shen in their like rankings of players. But again, like there's so many players that they could potentially pick from, and like, you know, and the Toronto's involved, and it sounds like Vegas is involved too. And Doug has a history in dealing with those teams because he dealt Ryan O'Reilly and Nola Chari to Toronto, and obviously Barbashev to Vegas. And it feels like in the NHL, like GMs just have those kind of marriages where they're just like, hey, like we made a trade before, let's do it again. And then they just do that like 45 times until they both retire. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's just, they just love dealing with the same people all the time. So it's really like, you can forecast all you want, but it's really going to be hard to determine who Braden Shen would potentially go to, and if he even goes anywhere at all. Like I said, this team is speaking to me right now. Like, don't touch us. Let us compete for the playoffs. So like, I would leave him alone, or you could even like say, hey, like, let's go bring in a better like third line center or second line center. Let's add to this team. Maybe, you know, maybe you don't bring in an entire line or like doing a huge shakeup, but like a small like addition of like a bottom six player, I think wouldn't cause an earthquake of impact, and you could like, you know, boost the roster and see what happens there. So really anything is on the table with Doug Armstrong right now, but that's sort of the case always with him because he's just always got a ace up his sleeve. So it's going to be exciting to see what happens. That's for sure. I'm going to be tuned in like nobody's business. I'm going to get nothing done.
It's certainly going to be a fun one these next 2 days, to say the least. So to go back to tonight's game, though, and this was obviously a big game for not just the Blues, but really the Kings, of kind of a prep themselves to see what they want to do, obviously, with their stance at the deadline. They sit right now third in the Pacific with 70 points, 30, 21, and 8. The Blues now 3 points behind Calgary at 29, 27, and 6, and still looking to move up. And so they outshoot the Kings tonight 30-23. They win the face-off battle 51.9 to 48.1. They get out-hit, but they have 2 more block shots. But like you said, the Kings give away 25 more giveaways than the Blues with just the 10. And it seemed like to me, for the majority of that game, with the exception of kind of the end of the second a bit, and then also definitely the end of the third, where the Blues really had the offensive push, it was more or less a lot of offense going just kind of to me, it just seemed like the Blues would get it, dump it in, Kings would break it out, and then they'd just clash at right at the neutral zone, and the Blues would get it and dump it back in again. And then they just kind of keep doing that. And then every now and then the Blues would actually bring it in, have some offensive time, and then the Kings would just pull it right back out. They'd collide in the neutral zone, and kind of the same thing going over and over again.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's by design, you know, like the whole key for the Blues success is like, you know, when in doubt, if you don't see a play there, just dump it in behind the net. Right. And then you're going to go win those 50-50 puck battles, just because the Blues top to bottom, I think, can go toe to toe with any team in the NHL's like compete level, especially when they're, you know, backs against the wall. Like, oh, this team has to absolutely win this game right now. You've got a bunch of warriors on that squad that's built like by design to have warriors. I mean, we saw it with Jake Neighbours tonight. He's going out there banging bodies, but then he scores a highlight reel goal. Like, and he's just a young guy, but he's got a whole bunch of experience in his short time in the NHL. And he's got a whole bunch of veterans like Braden Shen that he can lean on. So I think all those things taken into consideration, like that's got you set up for success, not only in the regular season and when push comes to shove with your back against the wall, but we've seen time and time again, like, you know, you get a very skilled team, like all-star roster full of, superstars like the Toronto Maple Leafs into the playoffs, and they lose round one because they just don't have the physicality. Because, really, the playoffs are a completely different game of hockey as compared to the regular season. Like, if you're a referee, like 9 times out of 10, you're just going to put away your whistle because you don't want to be the guy that's, getting your fingers all over the game. So it's just a different beast of a hockey game, and it's much more physical. So if you're already building your team to be physical based and be depth based like the Blues do time and time again, and you've got a goalie that you can rely on like Jordan Binnington, who we just saw again, you can make the argument that he stole this game absolutely with the way that he was making saves, not only in regulation, but in overtime, and just stonewalled almost everyone in the shootout. He's your guy, right? So like we talked about last time, like this team, if they get in the dance, they have a chance. And I think that's the most exciting about watching the Blues right now is that, we're 66 points right now in the wild card spot. I think it's Calgary and Canucks are both at 67. So you're neck and neck with a playoff spot. You're 1 point out again. It's not like this Blues team is going away with a whimper, right? Like they're fighting tooth and nail, and that's what we want.
Calgary Vancouver, that is, picking up the win tonight against Anaheim, who the Blues will see Friday night. And taking a look at some of the chat, Ikta saying, unless Army sees something for long-term future peace, it's time to stand pat with this crew with a message of, I believe in this squad. I definitely think, I agree, and I don't at the same time, and it's purely because I certainly just don't know. We can't know what Army is thinking right now, and I think that's just the reality of it because the Blues have been in such a weird spot with what they've done following the break. It's really thrown, I think, him and every other Blues fan for a loop because typically when a team is on a path, you can pick the brain of the GM. But right now, what we've talked about, what I've seen back and forth with, fans all over, I don't really know if there's really a direction that we can tell Doug is set in until Friday comes.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Doug right now and why he's probably doing a dance in his room wherever he was watching the game is leverage, right? That's the biggest thing with trade deadline, right? The last thing you want to do is be like in last place, going to the trade deadline and be like, yeah, well, we really don't have to make a trade. And then like have every other GM in the league like laugh at you and be like, dude, you're the worst liar of all time. You know what I'm saying? But like for Doug, like you kind of came into this stretch of the season after the Four Nations break being like, okay, not looking great. We might need to sell. I don't want to tell teams that we're a seller because I don't want them to be like, yeah, just give me your best offer, like lowest possible for us, and we'll just fleece you and be on our way. Like that's never going to happen with Doug Armstrong. He's going to fight, all the way through every negotiation. But the way that this team has played right now has given him the leverage to actually say, truthfully, I don't have to make a move at all. Like I can keep this team as it is right now, and I'll be happy. We'll ride off into the sunset and just see where the cards play out. If we make the playoffs, great. If we don't, that's fine. And in negotiations, that is vital because these teams that he's dealing with know that he can stand on business and just let it ride. Like he's done that a million times before where he just doesn't make a deal because he's not getting the price or the return for the player that he wants. So I think having that leg up on the leverage situation for Doug Armstrong, who is already a master of the books and all that back end trade deadline stuff, I think is only beneficial for the St. Louis Blues. So maybe that helps us end up seeing some movement, but I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. That's for sure.
Once again, if you're just hopping on here, Blues getting a 3-2 shootout win over the Kings. Make sure to subscribe here on Sports Hub STL, and you can catch us, of course, after the live show here right on demand, and follow us on all other socials, and also check in on sportshubstl.com. So looking at the playoff picture really quick, here's a number that was just sent across to us. Blues are 15, 18, and 4 against teams that are currently in a playoff spot, and 15-9-2 against non-playoff teams. 13 of the 19 remaining games are against teams currently out of the playoff position. Obviously, that's, it's a stat that you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that's, it's a great stat. But as a former player, I know you look at it, and I mean, to the players, it's a team's a team. It doesn't really matter. But that is certainly a good look to know that at least this year we're actually playing well against teams somewhat below the Blues, to say the least, because historically they've played the teams below them bad, teams above them ridiculous. But that is obviously the good lookout when it comes to record wise looking forward to the upcoming games. And as we mentioned, they sit right now 3 spots out behind Vancouver by a point, behind Calgary by 3. What I've heard is that the minimum amount of games needed to win is about 12-ish, and the maximum is about 15, depending on how the other teams do. And that fits right into that range. That will also require some big wins to be picked up. So does that thought of we need, to go about 12-7 at least, or, get in some overtime games in there as well, OT losses in the mix as well, at least 12 games, 13 games need to be wins. How do you think switches that up a bit for Doug coming into Friday?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is like, it's tough to look at the overall record and be like, oh, like, discard it or whatever. And I think the record against like playoff teams is obviously like an important one, right? Like that's a large sample size. You're looking at like the majority of your season, how your team has performed. But at the same time, the way that this team has performed after the Four Nations break is like night and day. So it's really almost like Jekyll and Hyde in terms of like where the majority of this record came from in the beginning of the season and what that team looked like compared to what the team looks like right now, while also balancing like, is the way that this team looks like right now sustainable, or is it just like a flash in the pan? And I think because of the way like their play style and all the players that they have that fit into their play style, finding their identity, it's not like a taxing level of like track meet, asking players to do too much. It's like, go out, play your game. Our identity, like let's control the puck, throw it behind the net, go get it, win puck battles, all those things. Like it seems like it's a sustainable level of play that they're playing right now. So I think all those things combined would lead me to believe that like this current team is the one that's kind of going to trend all the way to potentially the playoffs and all the way through it. So how do you maximize that? I don't know. That's why I'm not in the big chair that Doug Armstrong is. But it does give you hope as a Blues fan to be like, especially I don't think we've lost a game besides the Dallas game since we came back from Four Nations. And obviously that was a back-to-back against one of the best teams in the league. So,
and when we OT loss against the Jets.
That's right. But we still picked up a point.
Exactly.
So that's the nature of the beast, is getting those points, right? So even if you do lose against a team like Winnipeg, pushing them to OT, that's why like this game specifically, when they went to overtime, I was like, that's almost as good as a win right there. Like you just need to be picking up points. And those points are at a premium, especially when you're playing teams that are in playoff positions. So I think that's the most important thing. If the Blues continue to do that like they have been since coming back from the Four Nations break, the recipes for success is right there.
So just before, because I definitely don't want to forget about this, need to talk about a little bit about the game as well. Tomer now extending the streak, his point streak out to, I believe, 11 games now, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Sadly, the assist streak comes to an end, but the point streak continues with that goal now at 11 games for him. As we mentioned, Jake Neighbours getting back in, and he has found his stride since the Four Nations tournament. Now his third goal in, I want to say, 4 or 5 games for him. And he was one of the biggest things that was I think really coming out of the Four Nations break was if he doesn't do anything in the first 2-3 games out of this, he's gone. That was kind of the sentiment. But then he picked it up and he continued, and he's just been better and better here every game. And not just on the production side. I think he's done better moving the puck, creating opportunities, and just being a good role player as well. Getting in, despite, he's still up on the top 6, but he's still playing a very gritty style of hockey, almost kind of like a wing version of Shen, honestly. Like that's kind of what I'm picking up from him. But he continued.
Big power forward vibes.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, Binner with another excellent game as he continues to just be fantastic. Trying to get some numbers up for him as he picks up yet another win. So far this season, he is now 18, 20, and 4 on the season. Still looking to get that save percentage up, but that'll get over 900 eventually, I would imagine. It was kind of a rough start, but like we mentioned, the defense was a little bit of a struggle. But the Blues as a whole, they have picked up. And we didn't see it too much in this game, to be frank. It was a lot of back and forth. But I think it was a good thing to see, especially that final power play, tying the game up in that second period. The response from the Blues, even though they kept pretty much the Kings just going back, continuing to just punch him in the mouth. The moment, I mean, you also have to give it out to Kemper, who I thought he honestly played an excellent game. I texted you guys right through the middle of the game. Blues cannot buy a goal right now.
Yeah, he was nailed. That was tough.
They had so many great opportunities and just couldn't get anything going. And in the chat here, Broberg also, since Four Nations, has been awesome driving the net. Another piece. I mean, we've seen Broberg, what he is. I mean, he's probably been the biggest defensive or offensive defenseman so far. Numbers haven't really shown it. Obviously, he's got the 2 goals against Washington last week. But what he is creating so many opportunities down low. And you don't see that very often from defensemen. So
again, he's jumping up into plays. It felt like we had that whole conversation about Colton Parayko, and that Broberg listened to it and was like, maybe I should try it. And then literally, it felt like he was down low, up high, like on the rush, like just everywhere this game. He wasn't afraid to skate to any part of the ice. And he was causing chaos every time he did it. With the puck on his stick and without the puck. I thought he could have had like 2 or 3 goals easily. Like there was one he for sure had Kemper beat and the puck just like rolled off his stick. And I was like, man. But like you said, it felt like at times like the Blues couldn't buy a goal, but they were doing everything they could to try to generate one. And that was awesome to see, especially from your defenseman, because that's been so vital for our success, i.e. Colton Parayko.
Broberg tonight, just under 21 minutes. That is third most of the defensemen for the Blues tonight. And also 2 shots just behind Falk, who, to be honest, Falk, he's stepping up. He had some good looks tonight. I think he's still, like, defensively, I still think he's a good defensive player. But obviously he's not put up the offensive numbers that'll win him a Norris. Far from it. Is he a piece maybe we could upgrade? Again, it's another thing of that's one of those pieces where if someone wants him, I think we'd be willing to, give him up for something equal or better in return. But as of right now, he's not really on the table. But again, we have no idea. So, talk about the inevitable. Obviously, tonight, another big win for the Blues. They get the 2 points in that, and a really just kind of gutsy, gritty win, which really is, even though it's a win we would have liked to see in regulation, maybe also just gets, more than 2 goals was something I would have certainly liked to see. They had the opportunities to do it. But following tonight, I think at this point, we just got to focus now on the deadline. And to cut it short, really, who at this point now is most likely to be the piece to move if right now there's anything at all? Because clearly they don't have any more. I mean, obviously, they don't have any more games to prove anything. They don't really have – there's nothing else until Friday night. So you go into Friday. What is your thoughts on the thoughts of Doug Armstrong?
I still feel like there's not. I mean, would you like to see like a massive, like earth-shattering move? Yeah, it's always cool to see your St. Louis Blues and on like the headline of like TSN or like, crazy stuff like that. It's like, oh my God, what are they doing?
Said,
like they go get Miko Rantanen. Like this is crazy.
I was just gonna think like as long as it's not us, I'd be fine. Because the last thing I need is a blockbuster and everyone's going, oh, that's a terrible trade. Why would you do that? I'm like, they're just trying.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, all of it is a whirlwind. So it's just fun, like just watching every team's like descend into chaos because every fan just has a take over everything. But I still think it's going to be, if anything, a small move. I could see, honestly, what I think is probably most likely to happen is someone from the Blues, like bottom 6, getting traded for like a draft pick or something. And really my only reasoning for that to say that like one of our bottom 6 guys is potentially expendable is because the Blues just pump out bottom 6 players like nobody's been, like everyone that they draft is like a capable, like stud bottom 6 player. And you've got Nikita Alexandrov, who's just lighting up the AHL. I know Mike loves them. He's just lighting up the AHL right now. So if you can move a guy at the NHL level, get a draft pick, insert Nikita Alexandrov or whoever else you want in there, right? And you don't miss a beat, like you just gained a draft pick for essentially nothing, right? So I think something like that makes the most sense for me in like Doug Armstrong's eyes. Potentially like I've been saying, like a third line center or a second line center and then moving Braden Shen down would be ideal. Something like that. A right-handed defenseman. I think we have 2 right now. And then we just like kind of throw Nick Leddy in on the third pairing, I think, today. So that's kind of weird that we're like, just don't have one on the bottom right now. I feel like that could be a target for Doug Armstrong. So a whole lot of things and a whole lot of nothing also at the same time, kind of.
That's kind of what it's been for me. It's like there's a whole lot of things that like you could,
right?
But really,
you have to.
You don't need to.
Do you
like
want
you don't
to?
need to. There's no need. Is there really a want? It's like you could, but there's not really much of like really to need or pull or whatever. Well, one last time, just a reminder, Blues Hub postgame brought to you by Hot Shots. St. Louis is home for all the games, all the time since 1990. And still, please subscribe to the YouTube channel here. Check out all of our other socials, Instagram, Twitter, anything else. I'm sure there's plenty more that I don't even know about because
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Blues Hub. Subscribe on there and ring the bell so you get the notification. It's awesome.
I'm just a college kid, so half of these I think I'm just too young for. But even then, who knows? We might have a LinkedIn for all I know. So just go search for it. You'll probably find us. And also go check out all of our other content and a lot of our written content over on Sports Hub STL. You see a lot from our buddy Mike Meyer over there as well. He's got some fantastic pieces. So just that reminder. So kind of some closing thoughts on tonight's win. And looking forward to take out everything off the ice. Let's look at, for just a moment, let's take a look at the on ice picture moving forward to Friday night. Quick turnaround. Cam Fowler's first game back against his former team in the Ducks. What is our final thoughts from tonight and moving into Friday?
I think if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I think we're going to see the same lineup because it's been successful and we just keep rolling it out there. So why not roll it out there again, right? But I think we're also going to see the same concept, same strategy, same mindset, and same identity. If you don't see a play, get the puck in deep. Let's win the 50-50 battles. Let's go take it to the Ducks. I think Gibson just got hurt tonight, so I'm sure they're going to be feeling a little bit down, especially because that was probably one of the trade pieces that they were going to be dangling out there. So let's go punch them in the teeth, get some more points under the belt, and keep making our way to the playoffs. I think, and that Ducks team is a young team, and I don't think every team in the NHL is physical, but when compared to the St. Louis Blues, it's like different breeds, right? And they got a lot of good skilled players over there, but a lot of them are light too. So let's go knock them around a little bit and take it to them. 4-1 victory. I'm calling it right now.
All right, good. I like that. I like that a lot. Before we head out, I think my last thought, probably just like you said, play the game. I think if there's one game to try and get Tucker back in the lineup, would definitely be Friday. I think that'd be one. I think a lot of people would like to see Tyler Tucker in.
That's a great shout.
I think that would definitely be a good spot for them. But yeah, just continue playing it, and I think kind of to go back to last week, switch it up a little bit when it comes to not the lineup, but the mentality coming out of the gate. See what the Ducks want to do and just put it right back at them like we've done or like they've done the past handful of games. So that will do it for us. For Thomas Welch, I'm Jacob Stanoch. This has been Blues Hub Postgame here on Sports Hub STL.